Orphaned black girl saves old man. His secret changes her life. The blood on her hands wasn't hers. Zariah froze, her knees buried in the wet dirt beside the wreck. The early morning fog wrapped around her like a ghost, thick and heavy, muffling every sound except the ragged breaths of the old man pinned behind the steering wheel. She had heard the crash just minutes ago, a sharp screech of tires, the crunch of metal, and the kind of silence that follows when something terrible happens. It had pulled her from her quiet walk like a magnet. No one else was around, just her, the empty back road outside Montgomery, Alabama, and the smoking remains of a silver car wrapped around a tree. Zariah was 15, black, orphaned, and homeless. She didn't belong in anyone's story, but now, suddenly, she was at the center of this one. "Sir, can you hear me?" she asked, her voice shaking. The man was slumped forward, face bloodied, his white shirt stained a deep red. He looked rich, expensive coat, gold ring, and clean shoes. The car didn't belong on a dirt road like this, neither did he. He coughed. Zariah reached in through the shattered window and gently touched his shoulder. "Hey, stay with me, okay? Help's coming." That was a lie. She had no phone. There was no one for miles. She hadn't seen another person in over an hour. His eyes fluttered open, pale blue, glassy grace. He whispered, "What?" "Tell her. I didn't mean for it to happen." Zariah leaned closer, confused. "Tell who what?" But he was fading again. She looked around, heart racing. The front of the car was smashed in. A broken branch lay across the hood. The radiator hissed. She could smell gasoline, but not strong enough for fire. Still, time was ticking. "I gotta get you out." She scrambled to the passenger side, yanked open the door with all her weight, and crawled in. Her fingers found the seatbelt buckle, and released it. The man groaned as his body slumped sideways. "Sorry," she muttered, sliding his arm over her shoulder. "I ain't strong, but I ain't leaving you." It took her 10 agonizing minutes, dragging him through the grass, panting and shaken. She was small, but she'd carried trash bags full of her life before she knew how to move dead weight. By the time she had him a safe distance away, she was covered in blood, her arms scratched from branches, and her heart racing. She tore a strip from her flannel shirt and pressed it to the bleeding cut on his forehead. Then she wrapped another around his arm. "Sir, you hear me?" she said softly. "You're gonna be okay." He stirred. "What's your name?" A ghost of a smile. "Pretty name." And then, nothing. She sat with him for hours, talking to keep herself calm, humming the lullaby her mother used to sing. The morning turned to afternoon, and still no one came. Finally, just before sunset, a pickup truck rumbled down the road. A local farmer pulled over and jumped out, shouting, "What happened here?" Within an hour, the ambulance arrived. The man was loaded in. The paramedics asked Zariah a few questions, but she had no address, no ID, nothing. She didn't even try to get in the ambulance. She just backed into the trees as they drove away, lights flashing. 3 days later, she was huddled beneath the overpass again, same spot, same cold wind. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. Her stomach ached. She never expected to hear her name again. "Zariah," she jolted, clutching her blanket. A black SUV was parked by the road. A tall man in a suit, stepping out. He looked around and repeated Zariah. She squinted. "Who are you?" He stepped closer, hands raised. "My name is Carter, the man you saved. He's been asking for you." She stared. "He's alive." "He is, and he insists you come." Part of her didn't trust it. She'd seen tricks before, but something in Carter's voice was different. Gentle, honest, and for some reason she went. The hospital was a place she'd never imagined being allowed inside. White floors, real plants, warm blankets. The old man was sitting up when she entered his room. His color was better, and his eyes looked sharp now, not like before. "You came," he said. Zariah stood awkwardly near the door. "They said you wanted to see me." He nodded. "I needed to thank you. They said you saved my life." She shrugged. "I just didn't walk away." He studied her. "You did more than that. You stayed when no one else would have." "That means something." She didn't know what to say. Then he grew serious. "I don't have much time. Someone wants me gone, Zariah. This wasn't an accident." She blinked. "What do you mean?" He reached into the drawer and pulled out a leather envelope. "Inside are 3 things. Open it when you're alone." "Why are you giving this to me?" she asked, her voice low. "Because I trust you, and because what's inside will either save my life forget you killed. Her hands trembled as she took the envelope. That night, under the bridge, she opened it. Inside, a photo of a man in uniform, with "Tell Grace I loved her" written on the back, a faded baby picture, and a check for $500,000 made out to Zariah M. Cole. Her breath caught in her throat. Then the hairs on her neck stood up. Someone was watching her. She turned quickly. A woman in a grey coat stood just outside the tunnel, staring, smiling, and not saying a word. The woman in the grey coat, Zariah, didn't move. The woman in the grey coat stood about 20 feet away, at the edge of the bridge's shadow. Her face was pale, thin, and smooth, too smooth, and her hair was pulled tightly into a bun. Her eyes were sharp, focused, but it was her smile that sent chills through Zariah's spine. That wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind that said, "I know something you don't." Zariah quickly stuffed the contents of the envelope back inside and tucked it under her sweatshirt. "Who are you?" she called out, trying to sound braver than she felt. The woman didn't reply. She stepped forward, once, twice, slowly, heels clicking against the pavement. Zariah backed up, heart thudding. "I'm not here to hurt you," the woman said finally, voice calm and polished, like someone who rehearsed every word. "I only want to talk." Zariah narrowed her eyes. At night, in the middle of nowhere. The woman tilted her head. Sometimes the truth shows up when no one's watching. That was all Zariah needed to hear. She turned and ran fast down the slope, across the gravel, into the trees. She didn't stop until she reached the backside of the old tire yard, a place where even the dogs didn't bark anymore. She slipped between two rusted-out trailers and collapsed onto the ground, gasping. Only when she was sure she hadn't been followed did she open the envelope again. The photo of the soldier looked even older now, worn edges, ink fading. His eyes reminded her of someone, but she couldn't place who. The note on the back said, "Tell Grace I never stopped loving her, Jay." And the baby, maybe 6 months old, with a tiny birthmark under her eye. Zariah touched her own face unconsciously, right beneath her left eye, and felt it. Her heart stopped. The same birthmark, identical. "That's me." She looked at the third item, the check, $500,000. Her name on it, clear as day. There was no mistake. The man in the hospital knew who she was. He hadn't just been a stranger. He knew something about her, something big. But then, why had he said nothing? Why send a strange woman after her? And what did he mean someone was trying to kill him? The next morning, Zariah didn't go back to the bridge. She walked across town to the hospital, clutching the envelope like her life depended on it. She had to talk to him. She had to ask him what he knew. But when she got there, everything felt wrong. There were 2 police cars out front. A nurse in the lobby glanced at her badge before shaking her head. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. No visitors to the 3rd floor today." Zariah's stomach dropped. Why? What happened? "Patient on that floor passed away last night," the nurse said gently. "Older gentleman. Big deal. Apparently, real sad." Zariah's mouth went dry. No, that can't be him." The nurse blinked. "You knew Mr. Jennings?" Zariah nodded slowly, heart sinking. "He asked for you," the nurse said, a little softer now. "Said you saved his life. Talked about you like you were his granddaughter or something. Left something at the front desk. You wait here." Zariah's hands shook as she sat down. Her mind raced. He was gone. She'd seen him alive just days ago. He was recovering, alert. How could he suddenly die? And if what he said was true, that someone tried to kill him, then maybe they'd finished the job, and maybe now they were coming for her. The nurse returned with a small, sealed note. No name, just a time. Trust no one. Go to the address at 3:45 p.m. sharp. Alone. Underneath was an address, a house on the outskirts of town. Zariah had never heard of it. She arrived at exactly 3:45 p.m. The house was large but quiet, tucked into a patch of pine trees, with a rusted gate and a mailbox that leaned sideways. The curtains were drawn. No car outside. She hesitated. What if it was a trap? But something inside pushed her forward. She knocked once, twice. Nothing. Then, just as she turned to leave, the door creaked open. An old woman with silver braids stood behind it, eyes red from crying. She stared at Zariah like she was seeing a ghost. "Come in, child," she said. "He told me you'd come." Zariah stepped inside. The air smelled like cinnamon and old books. The house felt frozen in time. Picture frames from the 1970s, lace curtains, a ticking grandfather clock. The woman gestured to the couch. Sit. There's something you need to know. Zariah sat, clutching the envelope. The woman stared at her face. You got that, Mark, just like she did. Who? Zariah asked. Your mother, the woman whispered. Zariah's throat tightened. You knew my mum. The woman nodded. I was her midwife. I helped deliver you. Zariah's chest rose and fell in short breaths. But they told me. My mum died right after I was born. She did, but not before she left you with him. With Jennings. Zariah froze. He was your grandfather. Outside, a black car crept past the gate. The woman didn't see it, but Zariah did. And in the passenger seat, behind the tinted window, was the woman in the grey coat. Still smiling, her grandfather's hidden war. Zariah stood by the window, staring at the black car creeping past the rusted gate. It didn't stop, it didn't speed. It simply drifted by, like a shadow, deliberate. Watching cold, she recognized the passenger instantly. The woman in the grey coat, still wearing that same eerie smile, still looking directly at her. Zariah's skin prickled. They found me, she whispered. The old woman beside her and Odela followed her gaze but didn't see the car in time. Who, child? Zariah turned from the window, heart pounding. She was at the bridge 2 nights ago, just standing there, watching me. Now she's here. Odela's eyes narrowed. Did she speak to you? She said she wanted to talk. Zariah replied, but I ran. Odela exhaled sharply. Good. Zariah stepped closer. Why would someone follow me? Why now? Odela motioned for her to sit again. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured tea into chipped china cups. Because the people who wanted your grandfather dead don't want his secrets getting out. And somehow, you're holding the last piece of the puzzle. Zariah frowned. But I don't know anything. I didn't even know he was my grandfather until yesterday. Odela reached for the envelope Zariah had placed on the table. She pulled out the soldier photo and stared at it, eyes misting. That was Jennings back in '68, she whispered. Before the money, before the companies, before everything. Back when he was just a soldier in love. Whose Grace? Zariah asked softly. My sister, Odela replied. Your grandmother. Zariah's heart fluttered. He said her name before he passed out at the crash. He never stopped loving her, Odela said. But their story was complicated. He was from wealth, old Alabama money. Grace was a black nurse from Selma. When she got pregnant, his family flipped, forced him to walk away. He joined the army just to escape the shame they dumped on him. Zariah sat stunned. Grace raised your mother alone, but she never told her who her father was, trying to protect her. Your mom, Trina, never knew the truth, but Jennings found out years later. When he tried to reconnect, it was too late. Zariah looked down. She died in that motel fire. The one they called an accident. Odela's jaw tightened. I don't think it was. Zariah's breath caught. You think someone killed my mum? Odela nodded. If Jennings suspected what we now believe, that someone in his inner circle was trying to erase his connection to your family, then yes. That fire wasn't just a fire. Zariah leaned forward. But why? Why now? Because Jennings was about to change everything. He was rewriting his will, giving most of his wealth to charities, causes he believed in, and a big part to you. He told me last week, said he finally felt peace, knowing his legacy would go to the right hands. Zariah felt dizzy. Her, a girl who used to steal crackers and sleep under bridges, about to inherit something people would keel over. He was going to make it public, Odela continued. He told me the day before his car crashed. Said he was planning to announce you as his heir, not just his granddaughter, but the soul of the future foundation he wanted to build. Zariah clutched the check in her hands. Then the crash wasn't random. No, Odela said. Someone cut the brake line. He was supposed to die that day. Zariah sat back, stunned. But he didn't. No, Odela said. Because you were there. You saved him. That wasn't chance, child. That was purpose. Zariah's mind reeled. So, this woman following me, is she part of it? The people trying to erase him? She's not just part of it, Odela said grimly. She's leading it. Zariah's throat tightened. Who is she? Odela's eyes turned dark. Her name is Evelyn Crane. She was Jennings's personal attorney. For 20 years, she handled every document, every deal, every draft of his will. She's slick, smart, and ruthless. If Jennings really changed that will, Evelyn knows it. Means she loses everything. Zariah clenched her jaw. So she's trying to find it. To find the new will. Yes, Odella said. And if she thinks you have it, then I'm next. They spent the next hour going over everything. Zariah had every note, every line in the envelope. Odella inspected the check, the photo, the handwriting. She found something Zariah had missed. Tiny numbers etched in the bottom corner of the baby photo. A date, 062213, and a code, RCML3B12. Odella gasped. That's a storage vault. Jennings used to keep private documents in a record center downtown. This might be a locker number. Zariah's heart raced. You think the will's in there? Odella nodded. If he didn't trust Evelyn anymore, that's exactly where he would have hidden the original. Zariah stood. Then, I have to go. No, Odella said firmly. You're not going alone. But as they prepared to leave, a knock came. At the front door, 3 soft taps, then silence. Odella's face turned pale. Zariah whispered, "Should I hide?" Before Odella could answer, the door creaked open. It wasn't Evelyn. It was a young man in a black hoodie, soaked from the rain, holding a flash drive in his hand. He looked at Zariah. "They killed my father," he said. "And I think you're next." The flash drive confession rain tapped against the windows as the stranger stood in the doorway, water dripping from the edge of his hoodie. His eyes locked on Zariah. The flash drive in his hand trembled slightly, but his voice was steady. "They killed my father," he said again. "He worked for Jennings, and now they're coming for you." Odella stepped in front of Zariah without hesitation. "Who are you, boy?" The man pulled down his hood, revealing soft curls, caramel skin, and eyes rimmed red from exhaustion. "Name's Malik Jennings. I'm his grandson. Through his son Jamal. I've been in hiding since my dad died 2 weeks ago. He was poisoned." Zariah's eyes widened. Wait, Jennings had a son too. Odella looked equally stunned. "Jamal never spoke of a child. He kept me a secret," Malik said bitterly. "He thought it would keep me safe. My father was a whistleblower. He worked with Mr. Jennings on a plan to expose Evelyn Crane and her group. Said they were using foundation money for political laundering, shell companies, fake charities. He gathered everything. Then one night, he collapsed. During dinner, they said it was a stroke, but it wasn't," Zariah whispered. "No," Malik said. "He knew it. The night before, he gave me this." He held up the flash drive. "It has records, emails, audio files, contracts signed with fake names, all traced back to Evelyn. He told me if anything happened to him, I should find Zariah Cole." Zariah blinked me. "But why?" "Because Malik said, you were the last person my grandfather trusted, the only one who didn't want anything from him." Odella motioned them both inside quickly. "Come in. Lock the door." Malik sat heavily on the couch as Odella handed him a towel. Zariah sat beside him, feeling like her world was twisting faster than she could hold on to. She glanced at him. "So this flash drive, what do we do with it?" "We release it," Malik said. "Take it to the press, publicly blow everything wide open." Odella shook her head. "That's not enough. Evelyn controls media circles, especially local ones. She'll bury it before it sees the light of day." Malik leaned forward. "Not if we combine it with the will. If we can prove Jennings changed his will, left everything to Zariah, and expose Evelyn's crimes at the same time, she won't have anywhere to hide." Zariah stood up. "Then we go to the vault." Odella nodded slowly. "But we go smart. I'll drive." They reached the RCM Record Center just after 6 p.m. It was a gray building on the edge of the city, sandwiched between 2 warehouses. Faded paint, a busted streetlight, and a keypad entry by the rusted gate. Odella punched in the code, L3B12. The gate buzzed open. Inside, rows of storage vaults lined the walls like mausoleums. Odella led them down the 3rd row, then stopped at Unit B12. Her hands trembled as she turned the key. Zariah had found taped behind the baby photo. The vault clicked. Inside, a small locked box, old and dusty. Zariah reached in and opened it. Inside were 2 things: a handwritten will, signed and dated a week before Jennings's crash. It named Zariah Cole and Malik Jennings as equal heirs, and explicitly removed Evelyn Crane from all business and legal control. A phone, preloaded with voicemails. The screen lit up. One message sat waiting to be played. Zariah tapped play. Jennings's voice echoed from the speaker. "Weak, but clear. If you're hearing this, then I'm gone. Evelyn can't be trusted. She's turned everything I built into a weapon. I should have seen it sooner. Zariah Malik, if you two have met, then maybe some good will come of this. The will is real. The evidence is real. But the danger is real too. Don't stop. Expose her. Fight back, and forgive me for being too late. Silence. Zariah's eyes were wet before she knew it. Malik wiped at his face, jaw tight. Odella pulled them both into a hug. He believed in you too. Now you have to believe in each other. They left the vault quietly, locking everything back. The way they found it, Odella insisted on keeping the original documents hidden in a safe at her house, and Zariah and Malik would carry digital copies just in case. But they weren't home long. An hour later, headlights cut across front lawn. Two black cars. Evelyn Crane stepped out of the first one. No coat this time, just a crisp suit, black gloves, and a small smile, the same one Zariah had seen under the bridge. But this time, it didn't scare her. This time, it made her angry. Odella stood at the door as Evelyn approached. "You've been busy," Evelyn said, her voice smooth. Odella didn't flinch. "Get off my porch. I only want to talk to the girl," Evelyn said, glancing at Zariah over Odella's shoulder. "We both know she's in over her head." Zariah stepped forward. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Evelyn's smile didn't change. "Do you know what you're carrying? That will isn't legally binding. It was never filed." Yet Malik said, appearing beside Zariah. Evelyn's eyes flicked toward him. "Ah, the other loose thread." Zariah felt her pulse rise. "We have the flash drive, the voice message, the vault. It's all real. And when it's released, your empire falls." Evelyn stepped closer. "Let me explain how this works. Child wealth is power, but information, that's war. You're waging war on someone who's played this game far longer than you've been alive." "Maybe," Zariah said quietly, "but we're not playing anymore." Evelyn's eyes darkened. Then she smiled wider. "Well then," she said, stepping back, "let's see who wins." She turned and walked to her car, but before she got in, she looked over her shoulder and said calmly, "By morning, you'll wish you'd never opened that envelope." The car doors slammed shut, and they disappeared into the night. The night. They came for the truth rain, lashed against the windows as night fell over Odella's small house. Inside, every curtain was drawn tight, every lock doubly checked, but the tension in the air wasn't from the weather. It came from Evelyn's parting words, echoing in Zariah's head. "By morning, you'll wish you'd never opened that envelope." Zariah sat on the couch, the flash drive in her hand. Malik paced back and forth near the fireplace, jaw clenched. Odella stood by the front door like a guard, shotgun in one hand, phone in the other. "I don't trust the police," Odella said. "For the third time, she's got half the county in her pocket. You send that evidence to the wrong hands, it disappears." Malik nodded. "Then we go higher. A national journalist, an investigative outlet, someone with reach." Zariah opened the old laptop they'd found in Odella's cabinet. It buzzed to life slowly, the fan wheezing like it had asthma. She inserted the flash drive, hands trembling slightly. The folders popped up. Foundation_fraud, fake_contracts, bribes_emails, Jennings_will_scanned, voice_recordings. She clicked one of the recordings. Evelyn's voice came through, sharp and cold. "If Jennings thinks he can hand over the foundation to that street girl, he's out of his mind. By the time anyone finds out, it'll be too late." Zariah's heart pounded. "She really said it," she whispered. "She called me a street girl." Odella placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's because she's afraid, scared of what you mean. You're the truth, and truth ruins liars." Zariah looked up at Malik. "How fast can we get this online?" "No, someone," Malik said. "My dad used to send documents to him anonymously, works with an independent news outlet. They publish exposures and corruption cases. His name's Brian Torres. If we send this all tonight, they'll run it." "Will Evelyn find out who sent it?" Zariah asked. Malik shook his head. "If we route it through a VPN and use an encrypted email, no. But we need time, maybe an hour." "Then let's do it," Zariah said. They worked quickly. Malik created a burner email. Odella helped scan the original will. Zariah wrote the summary, her fingers flying across the keyboard, explaining everything: the car crash, the envelope, the vault, the threats, the hidden truth about Jennings and his heirs. When they attached the files and hit send, it felt like releasing a storm. "Done," Malik said, exhaling deeply. Zariah leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Now we wait." No, Odella said softly. Now, we defend. It happened just after midnight. The power cut out. All the lights went black. The laptop screen flickered, then died. Outside, the wind howled louder, but there was no thunder, no lightning, just stillness. Zariah stood slowly. That's not the storm. Odella moved to the window, shotgun raised. Then the sound came. Crunch, gravel, footsteps. Multiple. Malik grabbed a fireplace poker. They're here. Zariah's chest tightened. Why now? The files are already sent. Because even if they can't stop the truth, Odella said grimly, they can still stop the people who carry it. Suddenly, bang! The back window shattered. A smoke canister rolled in, hissing white gas. Odella shouted, down! As Malik yanked Zariah to the floor, coughing. She couldn't see, could barely breathe. Another window broke. Heavy boots thudded against the porch. Back room. Odella yelled, firing one warning shot through the front door. Zariah stumbled toward the hallway. Vision blurred, eyes burning. Malik dragged a chair to block the entrance. Go, he shouted. Find the emergency door, Odella said. There's a hatch behind the pantry. Zariah dove toward the kitchen, heart pounding, hands fumbling. She pushed open the pantry, knocking over bags of flour, old jars, until she saw it, a trap door with a handle. She yanked it open. Here. Malik raced to her side. He turned back to see Odella still by the door, firing again. Odella, he shouted, but she didn't move. Go, she yelled. I'll hold them. Tears burned Zariah's eyes as she grabbed Malik's hand and dropped down into the crawl space below. The earth was cold, damp, cramped. They moved quickly, bent low, following a narrow tunnel Odella had dug decades ago. Above them, footsteps crashed into the house. Furniture overturned. Shouts filled the air, but they kept moving. They emerged through a hatch. In the woods behind Odella's garden, Zariah gasped for air, heart racing. They crouched low, staring at the house from a distance. Smoke seeped from the windows. Flashlights bounced inside. Figures moved like shadows across the walls, but they didn't follow. Odella, Zariah whispered. She's still in there. She knew what she was doing, Malik said, voice shaking. She gave us time. She saved us. Zariah turned away, swallowing hard. They ran into the trees, disappearing into the night. By morning, the headlines hit. Whistleblower's grandchildren release evidence of billionaire corruption. Foundation fraud exposed. Evelyn Crane implicated in major scandal. Secret will reveals orphaned girl as true. Heir to $90 million fortune. Zariah sat in a borrowed hoodie, tucked inside an old diner miles from the city. The waitress poured them coffee. No questions asked. Malik scrolled through the news on his phone. It's everywhere. Brian leaked the story across 5 platforms. National networks are picking it up. Zariah stared out the window, to smile. She didn't deserve that. She said quietly, Odella. She was the only family I had left. Malik gently reached for her hand. Now you've got me. She met his eyes. And I've got you, she said. But as they sat in that small diner, a black car slowly rolled past the window. Zariah, TENSED. It wasn't Evelyn, but the man driving was wearing the same silver pin Evelyn had on her jacket, and he was watching them, not smiling, just waiting. The name on the building. The black car didn't stop. It cruised past the diner window like a warning, a whisper that the battle might be over. But the war had left scars. Zariah watched it go, her breath held, eyes sharp. Across from her, Malik didn't speak. He was watching her now, and not the car. Watching the way her hands trembled, but her jaw didn't. You okay? He asked softly. Zariah nodded once. I will be. The next few weeks moved like a storm clearing after a hurricane, slowly, with debris left behind. After the evidence went public, Evelyn Crane vanished. Some said she fled the country. Others claimed she was hiding in plain sight under a new name. But Zariah didn't care where Evelyn went. The truth was out. The damage had been done to Jennings's foundation, to the communities he thought he was helping. 2 families left in the dust of dirty money. But there was something else too. A ripple of justice. The foundation board was dissolved by court order. Fraud investigators froze millions, and for the first time, the courts recognized Zariah and Malik as rightful heirs to Jennings's legacy. Not just in name, in purpose. The story of the orphan girl who saved a billionaire became headline gold. News vans waited outside every courthouse. Strangers called her a hero. But Zariah didn't care about fame. She cared about doing something good with the weight she now carried. She returned to the hospital, to the very room where Jennings had looked her in the eye and whispered, "Tell her I didn't mean for it to happen." She stood alone by the window. A nurse walked in. "You were the girl, right? The one who saved him?" Zariah nodded. The nurse smiled. "He talked about you, you know. The last day, he said you reminded him of someone. Strong, stubborn, and full of fire." Zariah smiled faintly. "That was probably my mum." The nurse handed her a sealed envelope. "We found this in his drawer. His lawyer missed it. Said to give it to you if you ever came back." Zariah opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, handwritten, rough. "Zariah, if I could go back and do one thing right, it would be to hold you as a baby. To tell your mother I was sorry. To tell you I was proud. You were my second chance, and I nearly missed it. But you stayed when no one else would have. That means something. Build something better, and never forget where you came from. J. Her hands shook as she folded it back. For the first time, she let herself cry. 3 months later, the Jennings Legacy Center opened in a once-abandoned elementary school on the east side of Montgomery. A center for girls like Zariah, for kids in the system, for young people without homes, without hope, without anyone. Malik stood beside her at the ribbon cutting. He'd chosen to use his share of the inheritance to fund scholarships and support whistleblower protections. "Dad would have done the same," he said. Zariah nodded, the scissors in her hand trembling. The crowd waited, and then she cut the ribbon. Cameras flashed. Reporters asked questions, but what mattered most was the gold sign above the door. The Zariah Cole Youth Foundation, rooted in truth, rising in hope. That night, she stood alone in the garden outside the center. The stars were out. The wind was soft, and in the shadows of the fence, she heard a twig snap. She turned quickly, but it wasn't Evelyn. It was a boy, maybe 10. Dirty shirt, barefoot. He froze. "Sorry, I wasn't stealing. I saw the lights." Zariah smiled gently. "You hungry?" He nodded. She led him inside, made him a sandwich, showed him the beds upstairs, the lockers with names on them, the books. "This is for kids like me?" he asked. "Exactly like you," she said. He looked around. "Why would someone do that?" She paused, then knelt down. "Because once, a stranger gave me a chance, and I survived. Now it's my turn to give that chance to someone else." The boy looked at her for a long time, then whispered, "You're not like the others." Zariah smiled. "That's the idea." The next morning, as the sun rose, she stepped outside with a cup of tea. She looked across the lot. A man was standing there, a stranger in a black coat, silver pin gleaming on his lapel. Zariah didn't flinch. She walked right up to the gate. "Still watching?" she asked. The man nodded. "Just making sure the right heir is still standing." Zariah crossed her arms. "You one of Evelyn's?" He shook his head. "Was. Not anymore. She lost. You didn't just expose her. You replaced her." Zariah raised an eyebrow. "You think I'm interested in her seat?" He smiled faintly. "You already have something better." And with that, he turned and walked away. That night, Zariah wrote something on the back of Jennings's photo. Beneath the words, "Tell Grace, I never stopped loving her." She added, "She forgives you, and so do I." Then she placed it in the frame that hung in the center hallway, surrounded by pictures of children, of Odella, of her mother, a wall of memory, a wall of truth. And for the first time in her life, Zariah Cole didn't feel lost. She felt home. The end.